What's going on, MCU fans? Ryan O'Toole back here again, giving you guys another movie review. If you guys are new here, feel free to click that subscribe button and that bell notification icon for more reviews, reactions, rankings, and more movie content. We got a brand new MCU movie that has hit theaters this weekend, and it's a new character introduced in Phase 4. That movie is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Directed by Destin Daniel Cretton and stars Simu Liu as Shang-Chi, and you got Tony Leung, Michelle Yeoh, and Awkwafina. Before I get into this review, guys, this review will be completely spoiler-free. Shang-Chi just released in theaters. It's a big MCU movie, so of course there will be no spoilers in this review. You are safe here. Shang-Chi, the master of unarmed weaponry-based kung fu, is forced to confront his past after being drawn into the Ten Rings organization, led by his father. Now, if you know me, I am a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love the movies, as well as Phase 4 in particular. The MCU Disney Plus series like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, and we had Black Widow this year. So going into Phase 4, it seems like they're really diving into the multiverse, mostly in this phase. So this feels like a refreshing Guardians of the Galaxy or Ant-Man for me. I know nothing about Shang-Chi. I never read his character in the comics. I know it was about martial arts, this character, and Simu Liu. I don't know him as an actor. Now the question is, does Shang-Chi live up to the hype, or is it underwhelming? I will tell you guys right away that Shang-Chi lives up to the hype and more. I'm not lying when I say this. This is my favorite solo MCU movie since Winter Soldier. And that's a big statement, because Winter Soldier, it's one of my favorite MCU movies. This movie has an origin story, it's got great fight sequences, it introduces a badass, awesome new character to the MCU, and it just got to me. This movie meant something to me a lot. One of the big tasks going into a movie like this is the world building, introducing a new culture, which I absolutely love seeing the culture representation in Shang-Chi. So I was hoping that same effect, just like Black Panther did, and the representation in this movie is magnificent. The locations, whether there's a fight sequence, the opening location was beautiful. Just the cinematography of this movie looked breathtaking. Definitely one of the best looking MCU movies I've seen thus far. And this movie has some really great characters in it, starting with Simu Liu. Now I know the guy is from Kim's Convenience, which I haven't seen on Netflix, but I can say right now, Simu Liu, I'm sorry if I am mispronouncing his name, he is fantastic as Shang-Chi. Perfect casting decision. You could just see the struggle he had growing up as a child, living with his father, who is played by Tony Leung, which, as you know, he is playing a character we've seen before in the MCU. Won't dive into that. But it is a really big struggle for him as a kid and as an adult, living with his family life as well as his American life with his best friend played by Awkwafina. Now, I think Awkwafina can be funny, but she usually plays the same character in every movie, and she does it here as well, which I was kind of worried about going into an MCU movie like this with Awkwafina. She actually was great in here. I loved her friendship with Shang-Chi in the film. Definitely one of my favorite friendships now in the MCU. I bought them as friends, and they didn't force any love interest storyline in there, which I was worried they would do. Tony Leung, I was very excited to see in this movie. He's playing a character we have seen before in the MCU, finally done right. And Tony Leung is one of the best MCU villains I've seen thus far. And as Wenwu, just as the father of Shang-Chi, just such a brilliant storyline. The Ten Rings we have seen before in the MCU. And just him as a character in here, just the father and son storyline in here, is what made this movie stand out apart of the rest. You could just see the intimidation factor of this guy and the Ten Rings and the Mandarin and stuff that you've seen many times before. Whenever this character comes around, the intimidation factor is always there. And whether it's his sidekicks like Death Dealer, I love his mask and his design, or this other guy, just his presence is always known in this movie. I also want to give a shout out to the actress that plays Shang-Chi's sister in here. I thought she was a breath of fresh air. And of course, Michelle Yeoh. She is a legend. I love her as an actress. She was badass and fantastic in here. Some very strong female characters in this movie, done right. Guys, the fight sequences in this movie are out of this world amazing. Just like I expected going in. A martial arts movie in the MCU, you're gonna get that in this movie. The fight sequences are white knuckle. There is one sequence in here I was just mind blown watching for 8 minutes straight. My favorite scene by far is that bus sequence. I won't reveal the whole thing because you've seen nothing yet if you saw it in the trailers. And watching this movie with my buddy Cedric, we were just talking back and forth after the movie, like, this did not feel at all like an MCU movie. It was a breath of fresh air, guys. Like I mentioned, Phase 4 is really diving into multiversal timeline corruptancies and stuff like that. And this movie is just a very simple father-son family broken type of story. And I just love that about Shang-Chi. It was just such a breath of fresh air. The score is really great as well, and just the origin story. I usually love origin stories for comic book movies, and Shang-Chi is probably one of the more realistic and personal origin stories I've seen in a while. I just love just the flashback sequences of this movie, diving into Shang-Chi as a child, his relationship with his mother, his father, his sister, and just how he gets to where he's at today. And of course, if you're an MCU fan, stay for those 2 end credit scenes because they are really cool and I cannot wait to see what happens. One thing me and my buddy agreed on an issue with the movie is the CGI. Like, it's not as bad as Black Panther's final third act CGI, but some questionable CGI when it comes to the fight sequences, especially the bus sequence, had some questionable CGI. In the third act final battle, there are these dragon creatures and it gets kind of a little wonky and cartoonish. And I also wanted a little bit more from certain characters, especially Death Dealer. I really like his design as a character and as a villain look. He was barely in the movie. I wish I would have saw more of him and more villain representation in here. Before I give you guys my final overall thoughts on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, if this is your guys' first time checking out the channel and you enjoyed hearing my review for this movie, definitely hit that like button. It really helps the channel a lot. You consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, ranking videos, live Q&As. I talk a lot about the MCU on my channel. If you're an MCU fan, you're definitely in the right place. Consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and let's talk about movies. I'm so happy to be an MCU fan right now. Overall thoughts, guys, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was exactly what I wanted it to be. This was my least anticipated of the MCU Phase 4, and it exceeded my expectations. Simu Liu is fantastic. The action is off the charts. I cannot wait to revisit this one again. It was a total blast. On my rating scale, I'm going to give Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings an A. Guys, that was my thoughts on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Let me know what you guys thought of it down below. Did you love it like me? Did you think it was okay? Or did you hate it? Let's have a dialogue in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. All my social media links are in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.